Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and this is the EVE Universe show's continued coverage of the CSM 17 elections with our interviews, this time with the one, the only, the Brisc Rubal. How's it going, Brisc?
Hi, everybody. I am happy to be here alongside the voice of New Eden, Mr. Ashtarothi.
Exactly. So I gotta admit, when you announced your candidacy, I actually interpreted it the wrong way. I thought you were saying that you weren't running this year, but in fact, you were saying that this is your last fourth and out, as you put it, right?
Right. It's a football reference.
Right.
So I guess not everybody's going to get the football references, the American football references. But
I must have just heard it wrong.
I'm term limited after this term. So I basically said to myself coming into this, I do 3 in a row, and then you have to take a year break. I'll do my 3. This will be my 4th term. I don't have any desire to be Mr. CSM for life. Steve Rnukin already has that title, and he's never going to lose it. So as far as I'm concerned, Steve can wear that cap. I did my time. I'm happy to run once more and then turn it over to the next generation.
All right. Well, given the fact that you do want one last term, let's look at this. You have been pretty visible over the last year or so, both taking on being very much the face of the CSM on many different issues, but at the same time, you have been a bit more controversial in your shows like the Meta Show and stuff like that. You've been developing these caricatures, which are really fun, but I'm sure probably ticks off a few people. Let's talk a little bit about that. How do you feel over time, like all of this has impacted your ability to play the game, your ability to your mental health, like your life, right? Like this is, everything from you being banned for bullshit to people getting super mad at you for your work on the Meta Show to people using you as like the face of the CSM to their attacks. Like what causes you, in spite of all of that, to want to continue to be here?
It's a good question. And my wife and I were talking about this afternoon because she's like, do you really want to do this again? And I'm like, yeah, I want to do this again. And I mean, there's a couple reasons. I mean, first of all, one, I'm pretty good at this and I like doing it. I enjoy the work. I enjoy talking to players. I enjoy being on the CSM. I enjoy giving feedback, learning what's going on, going out there, talking to folks, getting an idea of what people are happy about, what they're mad about, being able to pass that on to CCP. I spent a lot of time building relationships with the CCP guys. And I'm one of these guys, I think I'm one of the very few people that can literally go into a meeting and be like, guys, you really fucked this up in those exact words, and have it not only be well received, but thanked for afterwards. Thank you for being so upfront with us. Thank you for being so honest.
Right.
And I think that's because I've got this experience where I've been with these guys for so long. We went through the whole situation. I was banned. Most players, after they got banned by the company, would not have come back and run for CSM again. They would have said, screw you guys. You mess with my real life. I'm not doing anything with you anymore.
I believe I questioned your sanity about that last year.
Oh, I mean, I questioned my sanity too. I mean, the first thing I ask anybody is, what the hell is wrong with you? Why would you want to run for CSM? What do you want to do this before? And I think that, the reality is you really have to love this game. You really have to want to make a difference, and you really have to believe you can make a difference. And that's one of the things that I think is very difficult for being on the CSM, because there's 2 views of it in the player base. There is the view that the CSM is useless. We don't do anything. CCP doesn't listen to us. They don't even tell us things half the time. And then there's the other view, which is the CSM is full of nothing but null block, null bear candidates who do nothing but ruin the game for everybody but themselves.
It is very much that like classic fascist argument that the enemy is both weak and strong, right? Like the CSM
Exactly.
does nothing and yet has absolute control and is ruining everything.
I always say it's Schrodinger's CSM. Ultimately massively powerful, yet completely unable to do anything. And at the end of the day, there's a little bit of truth in all of the arguments. There are situations where we don't get told things. There are situations where CCP doesn't listen to us. There are situations where we can have a lot of impact and where we have had a lot of impact and where I can point to specific things. I mean, obviously at the top of my list was getting the red dot fixed. Things like that, where we have had significant impact on the way the game has been shaped in a positive way. and in a way that people see and is visible because it's stuff that's actually happened. Even though I think the vast majority of the good things that CSM does is stopping bad things from happening. And when we do that, you never hear about them. It's like the CIA. You never hear about their victories. You only hear when they screw up. And we're similar to that on the CSM. When we stop these guys from doing bad stuff, when we stop them from touching the stove, as we tend to say internally, that's never sees a light of day. And unfortunately, I think that's one of the pillars of the institution. And the fact that we can't get out there and say all that stuff until 5 years after we're done, it sucks. But I'm hoping that we're going to start seeing a little bit more transparency. We've been pushing for that quite a bit. And I know I've talked to CCP Swift. I think he agrees with me. And I'm hoping that we're going to at least try to peel back a little bit of the curtain so folks can see exactly what we do on a daily basis and what we do on a monthly basis too. So we'll see.
It is true that like the curtain has been drawn more than before even. Like I haven't seen sophisticated CSM minutes in the same way that we used to for a while. I mean, like
that's because we haven't had summits. And that's the thing. Fair. Like they didn't have note takers in our meetings. They only had them. I mean, for the first, I want to say 10 months of CSM 15, I took the notes. I mean, I did almost all of that, and I made sure we had notes. I took them. That was my thing. I wanted to make sure I had a written record so I knew what was going on, and I didn't have to go back and review hours worth of tape anytime I wanted to remember what happened. But what I found was, one, I wasn't participating as much in the meetings because I was so busy getting down what everybody else was saying that I wasn't taking the time to think and put my own views forward. And then two, it was rewarding people that didn't show up. I mean, I can't say negative things about any of my fellow CSM members, not only because that would be bad politics, but it's also part of the code of conduct. We're not supposed to bash each other in public. So I'm not going to say anything negative about anything specific, but I will say I have served on 3 CSMs. Hopefully I will serve on 4. There have been great CSM members that put in the hard work, that show up, that ask questions, that come to meetings, that do everything they need to do. And then there are those that skate through and you see them once every 2 months when they say something in Slack and then they go off and you never hear from them again. And I felt like I was taking these notes. I'm rewarding these guys for not showing up. Why do I need to show up to the meeting? Brisc is going to take the notes. I can read them later. So I stopped doing that. But somebody needs to do that. And I've asked CCP, I'm hoping that if we can get on CSM 17, regardless of whether I win again, there needs to be somebody whose job it is to take meeting minute notes, get those redacted, and release them to the public so people can see what we're doing. Because there's nothing worse than thinking that you're electing these guys to go to the CSM and you have no idea what the fuck they're doing. And that's just not okay.
Yeah, I mean, and software has improved so much in the last few years. Like transcription software is not is pretty good nowadays.
Yeah.
Okay, so but
there's no reason why they can't do it. They have enough. There's like a dozen community team members now. They have people that could take the notes. It's not. I don't think it's a question of resources. I just think they have to have the will to do it and say they're going to do it.
Yeah. So you are on the Meta Show, and you're that's how a lot of people might know you on a day-to-day. And your co-host is the Mittani. Now, the Mittani was also on the CSM, and pretty famously was removed from the CSM. But I mean, during that time, one of the things he said was that he realized that there was a conflict between his role as the Goon Swarm Federation leader and his role as a CSM member, and that he was happy that he now can just dedicate his focus on what quote unquote really matters, which is his people, right? Being a goon first. Right. Do you feel that the same sort of a pressure applies to you? Do you feel like being such a prominent init member impacts your ability to do the CSM? Why or why not?
I don't. And here's the thing. I have gone out of my way to eschew any kind of positions of leadership in any of these organizations in EVE that I've had. I do the CSM and that's it. I'm a line member. I am literally just the same as another 1,000 players in it. I am not leadership. I'm not a director in my corporation. I'm not a diplomat. I'm not alliance leadership. I make no decisions. I am in none of the command channels. I don't even have access to the command channels in Mumble. If they need me for something like a sign or something, they got to drag me up. I don't do any of that stuff. So I've always said, in the end, when I serve on the CSM, I'm doing what's in the best interest of the game, not what's in the best interest of Init, not what's in the best interest of the Imperium or Goonswarm or whoever else I fly with. I'm trying to do what I think is right for the entire game based on my experience. And that's what I've tried to do. And if you look at the stuff that I've accomplished, the vast majority of the stuff that I can say, this is the stuff that I did, was stuff that benefited the entire game. I don't know, Orion's saying you're not just a line member, you're the face.
I actually disagree with that.
Just because I'm a face doesn't mean that I'm making decisions or that I have a responsibility to try to keep the group going or something like that. That's not my role. I'm not deciding who we go to war
towards
with.
The other people in Initiative that get a lot of shit done. There's a lot of big names in Initiative.
Right. And I mean, like the number 2 guy in Init is in my corporation. His name's Waking Tea. Great guy. Busts his ass, does a ton of work. Nobody knows who he is. They know who I am because I'm on the CSM and I'm on all these shows and I'm a co-host of a talk show. But in the end, I'm just a line member. I show up, I get in fleet, I do what they tell me to do. That's how I enjoy playing the game. When I'm not hanging out with Merc and Nam on Rampage, that's what we do. You do hear my words every week, but my words are not speaking on behalf of anyone but myself.
Right.
That's it.
So it feels to me like over the last 4 or so years, we have seen kind of this general trend towards politicalization of the CSM, right? Like the null blocks fighting more and more over how many seats they control, how much they can warp things, especially last year with the context of the war kind of shrouding over it all. I guess, first of all, do you agree with me that this is happening? Do you feel like the null blocks are in fact having undue representation over other play styles? And do you feel like that disrupts the effectiveness of the CSM to be respected by CCP or the player base at all?
There are a lot of questions in there, so let me unpack some of them, okay?
I handed you a platter. Enjoy.
It's exact. All right, so first of all, on the politics side, CSM 13, I didn't feel any tension. CSM 15, until the war started, and frankly, the war started after the end of CSM 15. It was kind of the start of CSM 16 when things started.
That's true.
I guess it was the start of CSM 15 when it got bad. You started seeing that. CSM 16, absolutely, 100%. I thought that there were a lot of situations internally where I was questioning what other people were putting up and suggesting to folks, where other members of the CSM were questioning each other. People were questioning me because they were looking at everything through the prism of, we don't want anybody to metagame CCP to try to get them to put their thumb on the scale to benefit one side or the other. I think we were all hyper vigilant about that. And I think in regards to the beginning of the war, I was one of the ringleaders trying to get a statement written by everybody on the CSM asking the company to take a step back, don't make any major changes to nullsec during the war, so that we can just fight this thing, get it out there, and not have interference from the company. And unfortunately, I mean, regardless of what you want, there are arguments to be made on both sides that they help the Imperium, they hurt the Imperium, they help Pappy, they hurt Pappy. But in the end, I think the company did an okay job of staying out of it until they didn't. And then I think the issue there became a situation where personalities conflicted on the CSM because of the war. And I know that me being the voice and being visible and being part of the propaganda machine, being part of the Eve media, made it a little difficult for me to get along with some folks on the CSM because they took the things that I was saying in my capacity as a show host and attributing them to me in my capacity as a CSM. And I've always considered those to be two different things.
Isn't that what Matani was kind of alluding to in his complaint, right? Like keeping those two things separate?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think in that situation, that's fair. And the question of are the null blocks overrepresented? I don't like talking about it that way. I don't like talking about the idea that those of us who run for CSM and get elected only represent the area of space that we live in, because in my experience, that has never been the case. You know, when we are presented with an idea, I don't look at it from, well, I represent nullsec. I look at it from, I'm an Eve player. Is this good for the game? And I know that some people say it's very difficult to separate that, but for me, it never has been, because in the end, a lot of the stuff that we do, a lot of the things that I'm advocating for, the stuff that I want to see happen, I want to see because it's best for the game. It's going to mean new players. It's going to mean more players. It's going to mean more people in space, more fun things to do. And that gives all of us, whether you're in Null or low-sec or wormholes or high-sec, it's going to give us all more content, all more people to play with. It's going to make the game better. It's going to make more people want to play because they're going to see everybody else having fun. And that's why I don't like getting pigeonholed into that. Plus, you know, what is a nullsec player? You can do industry in nullsec. You can do small gang PvP in nullsec. You can do abyssals in nullsec. You can run missions in nullsec. You can do PvE. You can mine. You can be an industrialist. You can do all kinds of stuff besides being a member of a big block. And I do that stuff all the time. You know, Mercanam and I are on the Rampage Incorporated stream. We do that. We stream 3 hours a night, almost every day of the week. We're doing small gang warfare. We're doing structure bashes. We went into Pochvin. We've done abyssals. We've done exploration. We've done all kinds of stuff to try to showcase the game. That's what I do. And I play in high sec still. I've got high sec alts. You know, I've got hauler alt. I've got all these other folks. I mean, we all tend to play in a large number of places. And I think it's a bad idea for anybody to pigeonhole somebody on the CSM just because of who they fly with right now. Like Ken Feld, not a PvPer. Nullsec guy, but he does industrial stuff. I wouldn't want him to be making decisions about, you know, balance changes. I would rather have Stitch on there for that. But in the end, can't think of anybody that I'd rather have on the industrial side than somebody like him or Steve Renukin or somebody that knows that stuff, even if they're on the other side from me. And even if they are in the same area of space, it doesn't matter. Like some of the candidates that I look at and I want to get on the CSM, it's not because of where they come from in the game or because I think that makes them diverse. It's because I think they're going to do a good job because they're going to show up. They put effort into things. They're personable. I think they're going to show up to meetings. They're going to do the hard work, and they understand what the role of the CSM is and what it isn't. And we got a lot of good candidates running this time, but there are always folks that worry me because I listen to them and I'm like, I don't think you really get it, and I'm always worried about the super famous people. That why are you running? You're already famous. You already know everybody. What are you doing this for?
Right.
And unless they can give me a good answer, then I tend to view those folks skeptically. But I'll tell you, like Pando is a perfect example of someone who I could say, why are you running for this? You've got everything. You're one of the biggest known FCs and everything like that. But I know him and I know he does the work and I know he's going to put the time in and I know he's running for the right reasons. So I don't like it when folks pigeonhole people or they try to just assume that because this person flies with this group, that this is what they care about. Because in my experience, it's never like that.
But Brisc, you know everybody and you're super famous. Why do you need to be on CSM?
I mean, that's a good question, right? And I think there's two major reasons. First of all, one, I think I have an ability to talk to CCP that almost nobody else has. Because I was banned by them. They know they've done me wrong. And they know that I still come back here and I'm still playing the game. And they know that I'm tough with them and that I'm willing to speak truth to power. I'm the first guy in the meeting to tell them that they screwed up. I'm the first guy in the meeting to say, people are mad. What are you going to do about it? But at the same time, I built up relationships with all of the various developers from Hilmar on down that I can have these tough conversations, but they know I'm coming from a place where I love the game. I care about the game. I've got the skin in the game. I've proven to them by sticking through it as long as I have, that I have the best interest of the game at heart. So they listen to me and they trust me. And I think that's a critical thing that you absolutely have to be a good CSM member. If CCP does not trust you, and they don't have to,
right?
If they don't trust you, they don't have to tell you things, because half the stuff that I learn and that I work on is outside of meetings. When I'm having one-on-one meetings with CCPers, when I'm having one-on-one discussions with them about certain things, that stuff's all outside of the normal CSM process, but it's part of what being a CSM member is. And if you are at that level where you can do that, I think you're twice as effective as you are if you're just somebody that just shows up to meetings every day. So I've earned that over time, and that's something that I think is unique, and I think it's something that's critical. And here's why. Right now, there are 3 incumbents running for the CSM. 3. Okay, myself, Ken, and Arcia. Assuming the 3 of us get elected, and that's a big assumption because we got a good field of candidates and turnout. We don't know what turnout's going to be like given the price increases and everything else that's happened. 7 new members of the CSM. 7. That's going to be the most new members of the CSM, if I am correct, since CSM 11. Okay. So the issue there is, how do you get a CSM ramped up and ready to go and up to speed so that they are effective for the player base pretty quickly? And I think you can't do that unless you've got folks on the CSM who have prior service, who understand the relationships, who can answer the questions, who can be like the elder statesman kind of person for the rest of the CSM members. And that's one of the reasons why I feel compelled to run this time.
Well, there are also three people who are running, who were on the CSM previously, that aren't necessarily incumbents right now.
That's correct.
But have been previous CSM.
That's right. We've got Phantomites running. He served one time. We have we got the other two folks that are running, and then we got Torvald ran and won the same CSM that Phantomite was on, and then Steve Renukin, who is the dean of the CSM. He's got 6 terms under his belt. This will be his 7th. That's great. Having that experience is important. I think that sets those candidates apart from the other folks. But even then, Phantomite, 1 term. Torvald, 1 term. This will be my 4th.
Right.
And I'm telling, and not only that, I've got the most recent experience. I've been here throughout the entire nonsense of scarcity. I've been here through all of the industry changes, all of the other stuff that they are still working on. And I've got that kind of continuity where I can come in here. I know what we've been working on. I know what we've been talking about. I know what they've told us they're working on. And I want to really hold their feet to the fire. You know, that was one of the things that I was actually looking forward to running again, was we go to FanFest. They present a bunch of different stuff. And whether you thought they presented enough or they did it in the right way, there's a lot of very big things potentially happening over the next year. You got the faction warfare revamp. You've got skill queue revamps. You've got the heraldry system that they're adding. They're doing the lore campaign, the new arc system. They're bringing back expansions. There's a bunch of stuff that they're doing, and I want to be a part
on the CSM for sure.
That's the thing, exactly. There's an opportunity here. They're finally trying to do stuff that players want and have been asking for, as opposed to me standing up saying, "Guys, why are you doing this? You're fucking everything up. Stop it."
Right.
I don't think I have to do that this time. Now this is a cool feature. Here's how we make it better. That's what I kind of want to. I want to be part of a CSM that does more of that than what we've been doing the last 2 years, which has largely been trying to stop them from screwing up. And unfortunately, I don't think we've gotten to that point. So
I do want to shift a little bit. And, you know, obviously this is kind of a sensitive thing, but like one of the things that you get accused of a lot is the fact that you are a real life politician, and that is seen as kind of this negative thing. But I also feel like that's a bit of a misnomer, that people don't properly understand like what you do and how that relates to your CSM campaigns and stuff. Because when you would campaign as if you are a politician. So do you want to shed any light or talk anything about like what you actually do and whether or not you are a politician in the classic sense?
So in the classic sense, if I were a politician, I'd be running for a body that had some kind of ability to govern. That's not what the CSM is. I mean, in the end, you know, we are a popularity contest in terms of elections, and then we are a focus group in terms of what we actually do. So yeah, I will get up here and the skills that I use on a daily basis in politics, because I'm a lobbyist by trade. That's what I've been doing for the last 20 years, in addition to a couple stints in the government and running for office and things like that. But at the end of the day, what I do is I go up to Congress, I represent my constituents who are my members to them and explain, these are the laws that are currently on the books. This is why we want to protect these laws, because they're good for my members. And if they're bad, this is why we need to change them. Right. And when they have issues, we want to do this. We want to fix this problem. We see that there's this crisis or there's this concern. We want to fix this. How is this going to impact you? And then I go up and tell them. So the stuff that I see with the stuff that we do on the CSM with CCP, where they're providing us information about what they want to do, asking for feedback. How is this going to impact you? How is this going to impact your group? What do you think about this? What do you think the player base thinks about it? How do they feel? Those types of things. It's literally my day job. It's funny because that seems to be in Eve a lot of times. What you do in real life ends up being something related to your space job. And that's how it has been for me. And I think the skill set that I have been using for the last 20 years in politics is exactly what I use on the CSM on a daily basis. And then election season rolls around and, you know, I bust my ass. I get out, I try to do as many shows as I possibly can without overexposing myself so that people aren't tired of seeing me. I try to do as many interviews as I can. I do your show. I do Meta Show every week. We do Rampage every night. I'm one of the most accessible CSM members and have been for a while. And I just try to amp that up during campaign season. And I try to have fun with it. Because in the end, if this is a game, it's supposed to be fun. The campaign stuff is supposed to be fun. I find it stressful, but at the same time, I enjoy it. Like my wife and I we're sitting down today. We're working on the next campaign commercial, getting ready to film some scenes and do some stuff. And I'm looking forward to that because I like it when you guys see that stuff and you find it funny and you're amused by it.
It is.
But in terms of that,
funny.
I mean, it's a lot. It's different, but at the same time, it can be similar. Now, one of the guys in chat had asked what the compensation is for CSM members. So CCP employees are paid. CCP employees get free 5 accounts that are covered by the company along with other stuff. CSM members, we are not paid directly. We get 5 accounts that are paid for the year, for the term. The reason for that is they want you to be able to, they want you to play the game. They don't want you to be under any pressure to go plex your accounts or make money or any of that kind of stuff. They want you to go out there and make sure you're doing what you got to do. So they give us 5 accounts for free, the same as the employees. They will cover room and board and a plane ticket and a meal allowance if we have CSM summits. And then we are also given free access to any EVE events. Now, what has that meant in terms of like actual compensation for me? In the end, every year I have found the CSM to cost me more money than I have actually gotten back from the company. And I think that's true for pretty much anybody that serves. Because when you're going to Iceland, you're going to be spending money on the side, even if they're covering your hotel and your ride. You're going to be buying, and the food doesn't go that far because it's really expensive on the island.
Gotta buy drinks.
And we haven't had summits for the last 2 years. So I went to FanFest and I got in free for that because of being on the CSM and not having a summit. That was our remuneration for 15. But that's it.
Right.
That's all we get. Maybe that's enough for some people, but frankly, if you're running for the CSM because you want 5 accounts paid for, no, that's not why anybody should be in this. That's not what it's here for.
And I really like that distinction, actually, in the fact that, like, while many people might peg you as a politician, like, the idea behind that is, and this actually speaks to a misconception about the CSM as a whole, right? Most politicians are running to be elected to have power over things, right? But the CSM doesn't have power over things. They must convince the people with power that something is a good idea. And that is exactly what you do in your real job, right? You don't have power over things, but you have access to convince those who do have power in order to think your way. So in essence, like, being a CSM member is a space lobbyist more than a space, like, senator, as it were.
And that's really more of what the job is, if you want to be honest. It is more of a lobbying gig than it is a politician gig, although we have to get elected, which lobbyists don't have to do. But I've done both. I've been in public office. I've run for public office. So I when people say, you're not really a politician, Brisc, I'm like, well, I kind of was. Maybe I'm not now, but I was. But I work in politics every day. So it depends on how you define politician. And I guess that's loose for some people. But I mean, in the end, this is more of a lobbying gig than anything else. And hey, you know what? Who better to lobby on your behalf than somebody that does it for a living? Now, Dorian in the chat asks, "Hey, Brisc, have you ever logged in off all 5 accounts at once?" Absolutely, all the time. Because at least 4 of them definitely all the time, and then 1 is my market alt. The other 4, 1 is my Titan alt, 2 are my Fax alts, and one is a Dread alt, and then my main. And then I've got another character that my son plays on that I sometimes do. I have 6 accounts, and then my wife has her
CSM
account,
claiming
so we have 7
account
in the
sharing.
family.
Oh no!
There you go. Right now, it's all me. It's all me. But yeah, I mean that's the thing. We multi-box in it every time there's a big cap fight. You got to get out there. You got to have your multi-box stuff ready to go. So I do that.
And you talk about how much you put into the campaigns, and I spoke about this last year. There's a lot of people that may criticize the idea that, like, you're quote you act like a politician during the elections, but really, like, you do it for our benefit, right? Like, I mean, it is a lot of fun, and I really do feel like having covered the CSM prior to you becoming a candidate and after, I feel like you have single-handedly improved the CSM campaign process by raising the bar of what it takes to be an effective candidate. And to that end, to show your dedication, I do have a clip from last year.
I know where you're going with this. Go ahead.
This is the power of Brisc Rubal, okay? Last year, CCP was doing their own interviews, and the CSM monetization is turned off, right? Like, you're not supposed to be able to do any of this stuff. But that didn't stop us. Fans of Brisc Rubal figured out how to break it, and we managed to get a hype train, which triggered... I don't remember why I was the one that was the person that ended up doing it, but it got him to have to spin his wheel. He did a hot tub stream, first and foremost. And hold on. Actually, let me expand this out a little bit. Because, you know, seeing the CCP's reaction to this is I think, essential to fully understand. All right.
Ago, Brisc takes off his tie. You guys wanted it, you got it. I'm going to take my tie off for you live on the stream if I can get it off because it's super wet. That was a different suit than this one, by the way. Taking the tie off. Here we go. Tie is coming right off of my head. Tearing it off. Hopefully I don't drop my earbuds into the water. There you go. Tie. Real tie. It's just super wet. Ash made me take my tie off. There you go. And it's out of here. And it's out of here. It's done. Ash Dorothy, you got that. That was for you. If you had gotten something else, I would have done something else. But we got the tie is off. Welcome to the new hot tub meta. I'm hoping that this will be something that gets all of our Eve streamers out there doing something new. Let's stream Eve from a hot tub. There we go. Make it happen, people. And I trust you.
And that's my point, is that, like, not only is Brisc out there representing us, but he's really, since the beginning, been pushing the envelope of what it means to run for the CSM, right? Like, before this, we had people that, like, barely even put up their posts, right? Like, so it certainly is not a matter of commitment by you as to whether or not you are an effective CSM member.
Well, it's supposed to be. I mean, this whole thing's supposed to. We're playing a game, guys. We're playing. I know. Listen, I know internet spaceships is serious business, and I know sometimes that we get a little super hyper, care about it, and we get all upset, and we dump our lives and our whole beings into this game. But it's a game. Have fun, enjoy yourself. And there's nothing I like more than making fun of myself. So when it comes down to it, if I'm gonna have a good time, it's usually because I'm poking fun at myself or something like that. I'm trying not to take myself too seriously. Like this is the shtick, you know. Right. The flag and the statues and the and the scotch and the ties and the suits and everything. It's just part of this. It's part of the character. It's part of being Brisc. You know, I'm just trying to have a good time while we're out here doing this campaign thing. Because I'll tell you, it can be very stressful putting yourself out in front of a whole audience of people. I do it every week. Not everybody does it. You'll see folks that don't want to get on camera, who are not used to this kind of thing, who are not as willing to get out there and talk like I am. And they can be just as good as CSM members as anybody else. But I mean, at the end of the day, you want to have fun with it. As long as you're having fun, then you're probably doing something right. And that's always been my experience playing Eve. If you're not having fun, there's something wrong. And you got to question, maybe I need to be doing something different.
All right. Well, speaking of having fun and, not taking things too seriously, I do want to transition to kind of a more serious topic, which is, above.
1 second before you get there, I want to say to Meldorino, we killed that after you guys left last night, just saying. All right, keep going.
So up at the top here, you kind of start your story with Star Wars Galaxies. And that's a name that I've heard kicked around a lot recently, because CCP is changing the game in some pretty dramatic ways. And in a lot of times, it seems like they're doing it in spite of how the older players feel about that. There are people that are very, very worried that even if CCP is quote unquote doing the right thing, that we may kill ourselves in the process of even getting there. And Star Wars Galaxies is a prime example about how that can happen when you alienate an old audience without getting a new audience. Having been somebody who lived through that, do you share those worries about EVE Online right now?
Here's what I would say. What Sony did to Star Wars Galaxies is always front of my mind whenever I'm worrying about EVE. The difference between Sony and CCP is I honestly think that Sony really was chasing money more than anything else. And CCP does care about this game, regardless of them chasing money. And I think they do. Not to the same extent as SOE, but they also they were footing the bill for a pretty expensive IP that they had to make sure was generating money. Right. CCP created their own IP, so it's different. And I know that given, the recent price increase, and one of the things I'm pledging right now, I will do everything in my power to make sure there are no more price increases while I'm on the CSM. But at the end of the day, I think we're always worried about whether the company is going to decide that they're going to throw all of the veterans overboard and focus solely on new players. I think that's why a lot of times veterans get very cynical about the new player experience and the 537th time that they've started it over or try to redo it or try to create a new one. I think they're onto something now with the NPE, with the Air NPE that they've put out. I think it's a pretty fun way to start the game. I've enjoyed creating a new character and running through that and playing it. I was like, wow, this is actually kind of cool. The graphics and the visuals are beautiful. Like, if you haven't done that, I urge you, if you have an extra spare character slot, go run the NPE. And I mean, it's really cool to see that from the perspective of what a new player, a new pro is going to see it, because it's just amazing. They did a great job with putting that together. But I worry about that they're going to decide that they're going to want to throw the veterans overboard. And I think a lot of veterans are concerned about that too, especially when we see major changes that impact existing play styles in negative ways. And the question then is, all right, well, you did this. Are you trying to get folks to quit? Is that what your goal is? Would you rather have a new player that's willing to spend money, that's not cynical about the game or not cynical about the company, who's not bitching on Reddit all day? Is that what you would prefer? Because in the end, those players are nice to have, and we need more of them, and we want to keep them in the game. But at the same time, when you bring a date to the dance, you want to dance with the date that brought you, right? So We've been with these guys for a long time. I played this game for 16 years. A lot of my colleagues have been playing this game for many, many, many years. And I think we feel like we don't like it when we feel taken for granted, or when we feel like CCP is not listening to what we like or taking away the things that we enjoy doing, or trying to act like what we were doing was bad or wrong, and then making it harder to do the stuff that we did before. I mean, in the end, this is a game. It's supposed to be fun. We want to have a good time. And I think there are a lot of people, unfortunately, that are playing this game that are here largely for the community, for their friends, and for the folks that they've made their way over the years, getting to know and hanging out with and enjoying, and not as much for the game anymore. And that, I mean, I'm happy that they're still here, but it kind of sucks. I don't like being angry at CCP. I don't like being critical of them, and I do it when I have to, because I feel like if I don't, as a leading voice, or at least as a loud voice, then I feel like I'm not doing my job, because I need to reflect what the players are saying. And a lot of players are mad. And if I'm not being mad on their behalf, then I'm not doing my job.
Right.
But I wish I could go into every CSM meeting saying, yeah, everybody is happy. Everything's great. This was a great announcement. This was wonderful. I've been able to do that one time in the last year.
Wait. What was the one time?
The one time was when they announced the Siege Green changes that was going to finally reduce the cost of caps and stuff, that people really wanted that. And some of the Citadel changes, and even with the Citadel changes that I liked and supported, there were plenty of people in the community who were super upset about the Citadel changes and were very vocal about it. And I made sure that CCP knew that. I said, look, I like these changes. I support these changes. I think they're going to be good for the game in the long run. But the small game community, the small alliance, medium-sized alliance community, the wormhole community, the folks that are reliant especially on Astra houses, and some of the medium structures really don't like these changes. Take a look at this, and let's see if you guys can do anything to help them. And that was a position that was the opposite of what I had been advocating and opposite of what I really felt. But even then, I still have an obligation to make it clear when I talk to CCP, you know, if folks are telling me that they like this or they don't like this, I can't go in and say, oh yeah, everybody loves it, because I know that's not true. And if I tell these guys something that's obviously not true, then I lose my credibility and they don't listen to me. Right. So I have to be able to present both sides and say, yes, NullSec Alliance folks, we really like this. We're very much enjoying it. We're getting to roll through regions and clear out stuff a lot faster than we had to in the past. But at the same time, medium, small size groups are not happy. Wormhole groups are not happy. They're very concerned, especially like wormhole groups where there's no asset safety and they only have 2 or 3 days to plan a defense and they only have 2 timers now. And the small groups who normally would fight on an armor timer can't do that. You know, I have to go in there and make sure that I'm representing both sides, because if I don't, I look like an asshole and I look like I'm being disingenuous, and that directly impacts on my ability to do my job. So I have to be fair and be able to present both sides, and I try to do that as best I can.
Do you think that CCP is having difficulty balancing the game, considering there are now people with 15 to 20 years worth of wealth and power built up? I mean, like, historically, they didn't have to do that, right? 10 years ago, there weren't people with 20 years of history and power in the game. Now they do. Do you feel like that has been a struggle? Have you witnessed it?
I mean, it's always hard to balance the game because, you know, they don't like, as far as I can tell, they don't like creating even more rule sets that separate the different areas and make them different. You know, there already are differences between null and high sec. There's differences between low sec and wormholes. There's differences between all of the different areas of space. And I think they like that there are some differences, but they don't want to make everything different. So when they're talking about upwell structures or citadels, they're trying to create something that when they make the change, it impacts everywhere, and it's generally easy. And I don't think that always works well. I think, frankly, in wormholes, because no asset safety, there should be different citadel mechanics. Low sec, there should be different citadel mechanics, especially faction warfare space. There should be different citadel mechanics that only apply to that area of space. But when you get into that area where you've got 4 different rule sets and 1 item, and you're trying to balance things, so trying to fix a problem in one area, and it's hard to separate them out, I think it makes it difficult for these guys to do that. And it's the same thing. Like you guys were talking with Stitch about, like, Marauders. You know, that was one of the things I was very pleased that we were able to get done on the CSM. We pushed pretty hard for that, to get, you know, the fixes to make Marauders a little more maneuverable, make them a little tougher, like them a little bit more of the high-end ship that they're supposed to be. But by doing that, to make them better at PvE, you're also making them better at PvP and changing the meta and creating new metas, because that's how people are they're going to min-max, they're going to figure out, you know, what is now best, what is now better than it was before, and they're going to use that, and they're going to turn it into the next big thing. And that's something that's difficult, because what works in one area doesn't always work in another. Surgical Strike is a perfect example. You know, that was a fix that was designed to reduce the EHP on a lot of these big ships so that more of them would die. Was that the result? No. It changed the meta in a lot of different places. It definitely changed the fax meta in wormholes, but did it make it better? I don't think so. Arguably, no. And what do they end up doing? They end up rolling back half of it to wild shrieks of joy from the community. And I think that's one of the things that CCP is constantly plagued by, is trying to develop stuff, trying to balance things for a massive game where some play styles are distinctly different and some areas are completely different. And a thing that benefits one area is going to harm another. And then you have to figure out, all right, well, what do I want to do? Are we going to make wormholers collateral damage again? Are we going to do something that'll benefit a nullsec small group, but then also accidentally, it scales great for the big guys too, and now they're way overpowered and we have to roll it back? That's hard, and that's what they pay. That's what we pay the CCPers to do, and that's one of the difficulties of a game this size. And I don't think there's any solution to it other than they just got to keep tinkering.
So going back to the medium structure thing, though, one of the things is that, like, it's very apparent to me, at least, that the model for the medium structures was the POS, right? POSes only have 1 tower. POSes have a timer of a day and a half. You know what I mean? Like it really feels like they're making it the bridge between a POS and what we upwell structures, like the larger structures. And that's fine.
That's what I said, by the way, and got shouted at by the medium-sized and small can alliance guys. But
well,
yes,
I can say it. They can shout at me. I don't care. But my question is, even if you assume that that's true, medium structures still require quantum cores. They are 3 to 4 times the cost of a POS. Is that I feel like the problems, often we deal with problems incorrectly identified, right? Do you think that medium structures still need a quantum core after its nerf, or what are you, or what would you advocate for that situation? Since I don't think it's good the way, I don't think where we're at right now is going to be the final solution. Do you?
I mean, what I would say is what I would suggest, or if they were to tell me, how do you fix this problem? I mean, the first thing I asked for was a longer period for the wormholers. We got them an extra day on their reinforced timer so that they weren't stuck in a position where, because there are no ADMs, because there's nothing to increase the security of a system, that they had the potential of leaving on a Friday and coming back Saturday and their stuff's all dead.
Right.
So adding the day was good. I think, frankly, low-sec and probably wormholes, I would be okay with creating a separate rule set to give them 3 timers for their medium structures. I can understand why that would be necessary in those areas of space. And if you want to have those groups to be able to put those structures up and not have them instantly killed by the big guys, then I can say, all right, yeah, go ahead. I can see that, because that's really my understanding, having talked to a number of the medium-sized alliance folks in low-sec and null-sec, to be honest, as well as the wormhole guys, is part of the benefit, part of the reason why they survive using all these structures is the structures are so worthless and at the same time too much of a pain in the ass to go and clean out, that they have the ability to defend them, because folks don't put a lot of effort into cleaning them out. And that when you go up to that next level, you go up to the Fortizar, that's a bigger target. It can hold caps, and it can hold dreads. It can hold a dread bomb. It can hold a bunch of carriers and stuff like that you can't do in an Astra house. Then the result is they have a bigger target on their back. They're more expensive. They're more likely to die, and because of the core, they're more lucrative to kill. Right. So those ones tend to get blown up. So if the real issue is trying to make sure that these medium structures are annoying enough that it deters groups from just wantonly going out and blowing them up, then I can see adding another timer. But I'd say the other thing I would like to see, and this is something we had talked about on the CSM, is to go back. You remember the siege units we used to do for POS warfare? Maybe having something like that where to start hitting a structure, the attacker has to put something on grid. The attacker has to put some money down or something to make it so that's not, the risk is not only on the side of the defender. Make the attacker have to invest something. They just can't go and ref things randomly and then come back later and decide to do that.
Like a blockade unit
I think
thing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, something like an SBU where you go out there and you have to drop it and it costs money, and it stays on grid for as long as you're hitting the structure, but then defenders can attack that. You got to protect it. Those types of, just provide some kind of a counter gameplay so that it is possible to defend a little bit more some of these medium structures rather than just getting them run over. I wouldn't mind seeing that. But again, these issues are hard because the reality in nullsec is we have so many of these little Roach Motel citadels all over the place, and you're clearing out a region. I've just cleared out 3 in the last month. It becomes a chore, and it becomes space work, and it's not fun, especially when they're constantly undefended, which is another issue.
I think that's part of what I meant by the difference in power levels, right? Like CCP has to deal with people with just a yes amount of money and people that are barely scraping together enough for their Astrahus. These people are playing the same game and have to work with the same mechanics. And I feel like that's a very challenging thing to do. But I'm running low on my time, so I want to transition, or I do want to ask about the dynamic bounty system. So this is one of the most probably
sucks.
maligned feature. And I actually agree that it runs counter to other mechanics, right? The ADM system seems to be directly opposed to the DBS system. What's happening and what needs to happen?
So there've been constant promises from CCP since the dynamic bounty system came in that they would pay attention to it, they would tweak it, they would adjust it as needed. You can decide for yourself whether or not they've done that. There was a month and a half when the DBS was not working anywhere, and folks kind of said, "Hey guys, this is not working anywhere," and it took CCP like 6 weeks to fix it. So I think some of the promises and claims that they were going to monitor it and fix it as needed, maybe they didn't so much do that.
They've adjusted the percentages, but they haven't adjusted like the fundamentals,
right?
If that makes sense.
Well, and that's the thing that I think is frustrating to me. I think first of all, the ADM system needs to go away.
The ADM system.
I would like to see the ADM system go away. I would like to see iHubs and TCUs merged into one. I would like to see those changes to SOV so that the focus is less on what you're doing in your space, as opposed to how can you make the space productive so you want to do stuff in it. I hate the idea that people have ADM fleets where they got to go around and rat even though they don't want to, because it's not lucrative enough or it's not making enough money, but they have to make the system more defensible. That just it never made a lot of sense to me, especially when you put in a system like the DBS that rewards PvP, but like punishes people going out and doing a lot of ratting, right? So I think the other thing they wanted with the DBS is they wanted to force the big groups to move around, which I think is horrible. I think it's a bad idea, because what happens? The big groups can push around the little groups. So if the big groups farm out their areas and they have to move into new territory, they're just going to go through and they're going to mow down anybody in their way. And most of the big groups don't want to have a big group near them. They want to have buffer areas in between with small groups so that there's not constant warfare. Or if there is constant warfare, it's low grade and it's not SOV related. It's just like fleet related. Because SOV is a pain in the ass to defend. It's a pain in the ass to hold. And there's not a whole lot of reason to do that unless, you're one of these big groups. So right now, if you look at the map of New Eden, in the southeast, you've got Imperium. In the northeast, you've got Fraternity. In the northwest, you've got Horde. And in the southwest, you've got a bunch of random shit. And right now we're in the southwest fighting. But the reality is most of these big groups are not going to move around just because of ratting and mining through the DBS. So it didn't achieve the goal that it was originally supposed to do. Well, and I think it punishes people for using their space, and it provides incentives for the big guys to go push the little guys around because they want to make sure they have the best area and the most area in order to get the same amount of ratting that they got out of the systems that they held before. So what I propose, what I think would be a good idea, is instead of the dynamic bounty system reducing bounties in systems with a lot of ratting, the bounty system should stop at 100%. That should be the minimum. 100% is the floor. You get what you would normally get in any system if nothing is happening there and you guys are just ratting. But the more PvP, the more stuff lost, the more dangerous the space is, that increases the DBS the way that it does now up to like 250% of what the 100% minimum is. That encourages people to go out and rat and be in space because it's more lucrative to do it, but it doesn't punish people and try to get folks to move around when we know they're not going to. So that's what I'm looking forward to working on with these guys, and hopefully we can get that done. I don't know, because I'll be honest, ecosystem related issues have been some of the hardest for us to work on the CSM, because it's one area where CCP looks at us and says, these guys are self-interested. We have to be very careful what we listen to from them, because we don't want them to metagame us or play us. We don't want them to be doing stuff that's for their benefit as opposed to anybody else. Because this is really something that I think impacts Null more than anywhere else. And I think they worry about that. So it's been very difficult for us to have a lot of influence on some of these ecosystem changes, especially the DBS stuff. But
it's very easy to just write off your feedback as like, of course they don't like it.
Right.
So, but I think that even optimally, when it comes to the DBS system, one of the things that they were attempting is not necessarily even roaming around. Because what I've heard is a lot of people are saying that it failed because people aren't moving around, that they're just kind of, you know, turning over their fields, as it were. And I actually do think back to like the farms and fields concept. And so like that actually kind of makes sense to me, right? Like, I mean, this is how fields work. You know, you use this one for a while and then you let it chill while you use a different field. And so like on that level, it works. But then if I just look at it from a game mechanic point of view, one of the things I think is that the way you get smaller groups is by making it so that larger groups can be effective with less space, right? If the Imperium can be perfectly happy with one region, then that makes it so that all of the other regions are available for everybody else.
Exactly.
So if they
100%.
double how much space you have to hold, that makes you interested. Like one of the biggest problems before was the fact that you wanted to hold as much space as possible. And so that's why you get these huge blocks and huge coalitions. I think that the secret to breaking it up would be to make it so that, you know, focusing on a smaller area is advantageous. And I don't feel like the DBS system does that.
I don't think it does either. And I think that's part of the problem with it. And I think, you know, frankly, the whole idea that you have to hold a lot of space to make it profitable I don't think that's true. I don't think it's been true for a while. I think Imperium, if anything, has proven that the best way to make money is to take 1, 2, 3, 4 regions at most, maybe, make those regions full of infrastructure, get your guys out, get them out into space, and do it. And you can make money hand over fist. Olmec is in the chat. He showed me the other day during the Prosperity era. You know, Imperium made, Goons alone, I think, made something like 250 plus trillion ISK, you know, ratting and mining during that time period. And they were doing it in Delve.
Yeah.
They didn't need 15 regions of space. They didn't need 9
Delve
regions
time
of space.
unit.
They didn't. Right. Yeah, exactly. The old days of the Delve time. You didn't need to have massive swaths of space taken up by your group, which obviously then pushes out the smaller and mid-sized alliances that absolutely need to be part of the ecosystem. We talk about this all the time on Rampage. You know, we need the small alliances. We need the mid-tier alliances. We need the guys that are out there doing that are not that big, but that bring the content, that are available. They bring in roams. They do fight. They defend their space. They live there. They build it up. They're a critical part of the ecosystem. It's like not everybody can be a whale. You need plankton. You need the krill. You need the guys out there that are going to be at the small level. And there are plenty of folks out there who are happy to do that. And there needs to be a place for them in the game. And I don't want to be in a position where the big guys are pushing those guys out or around. But unfortunately, when you have systems that are designed to force the big guys to move around, who is the victim? It's not the other big guys. It's the little guys. And that's what we've seen. And I'm not a fan of that. And that's why I'm hoping that we can get some of these changes made that'll make it easier for the midsize and the small guys to survive and thrive, because they are what we need more than anything right now in EVE. I think we got plenty of big groups. We need more of the small guys now.
Is scarcity over?
No, absolutely not. No.
What would it take?
Scarcity is the new normal. Scarcity is the new normal. It is not going to be over. This is the new normal. That's the thing. Like DBS system. This is the thing. We say it has been unsuccessful in one of the goals of what they talked about, which was forcing the big groups to move around. But the other goal was just to reduce the amount of money everybody's making.
Right.
And in that way, it's been hilariously successful. Like you look at the amount of money that all of the groups are bringing in. Ratting and nullsec is not a good use of one's time. You're better off running high-sec incursions. You're better off running high-tier abyssals. You're better off going into a wormhole and finding a C2 or a C3 and farming your heart out than you are ratting or mining in nullsec. You know, and that they've nerfed that into the ground. So the result is, you know, all of these big groups are trying to find creative ways to make money. One of the bad sides of that is one of the ways they do it is renting. And I hate renting. Renting is awful. It is the worst kind of serfdom in EVE, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I'm pleased that the Imperium has said, no, we're not doing that anymore. We're going to take a stand against this. We're not going to rent space. And we're going to, if you want to live here and live in the space and do it, then that's fine. We don't have a problem with you being on our border. but we're not going to make you pay us for the privilege.
Section 8.
Right. I mean, no, that's the thing. Like, you don't have, not every group does that, and some groups are expanding their rental space. I mean, fraternity will not stop gobbling up regions over and over again. I get a little frustrated with that. And NC DOT has the longest, most established renter program in the game. They've been going for ages.
Well, that's what I meant by
I don't want to promote
encourage to take over as big of a space as possible, and then like install renters in order to be there as like your power base.
I mean, if anything, the problem with the renter system is, at least in my experience, the renters don't care who owns the space. They just they want to know who to send the check to and be left alone.
Right.
They don't want to fight. They don't want to defend it. They're not interested in your stuff. And it's like the peasants in Holy Grail. You walk past. Are you are you my peasant? Are you the king? Oh, I thought we were autonomous. It's like they don't care. They don't know who is in charge. They don't care who's in charge. It doesn't matter to them. And I don't like that. I want people to have pride in their groups. I want them to have pride in the space they live in. I want people to say, yeah, I'm from Faith Abylus. I want to be here. This is where I live. I'm going to defend it. I don't want it to be, and it's in charge now? Okay, that's where we'll send the check. Fraternity took over? Okay, we'll send the check there. Oh, this is test-based now? All right, we'll let you guys, that's fine. I don't like that stuff. It just frustrates me.
A common accusation is that the loss of passive income in things like moons and stuff like that is the reason why this happens, right? Like with the need of active participation in order to get resources, then, a larger group holding a territory and kind of doing a protection racket by installing people to do that work and then just collecting the money, that's their passive income now. Right. Do you think that the solution is to reintroduce passive incomes? And if so, how?
There needs to be some kind of income that is based on an alliance or corporation level, I think. We used to have passive income. People hated, CCP hated it because, these people they're just generating all this but they're not really doing anything for it because they're just creating all this moon goo and then they're selling it and they're doing the Technium moons are like, that's the thing. But that was great content and people fought over that and it caused a lot of conflict over the years and we don't have those anymore. And
it gave reason
active
to hold
moon mining. Right. I mean, active moon mining is good and it's interesting and it provides something for people to do. But in terms of alliance income, it's totally different from what passive income used to be. Now, I don't expect CCP is ever going to put passive income back, but I'll tell you what I would love for them to do. There should be some kind of what I would call, or I would suggest be called either like conflict-based income or like conquest-based income, where there are income streams that are designed for alliance and corporation level, that are designed for those groups to be able to fund SRP, to fund infrastructure, to fund the types of things that you need in order for a good sized group to survive. The rigs on a Satoyo, putting up infrastructure, putting up jump bridges, putting up beacons, all of that type of stuff that you need to be a big alliance in EVE Online costs money, and you got to have ways to generate that for those corps and alliances. I'd like to see something like that, where you own this piece of territory and you earn income because you own that territory. Or you own this specific item, you earn income because of this item. And other groups can come and try to take that from you. And if they get it, they control it. And they get that income. And it'll create conflict. And it'll be at the strategic level that's going to make an FC say, I've got to form a fleet to defend this because we need this money because it's funding our SRP or it's funding our war effort or it's funding our infrastructure. And we don't have those now. And even with the corporation and taxation stuff that they talked about at FanFest, there still needs to be things to tax.
Right.
So I'm hoping that we can see some of that down the road.
Yeah. And just solving it with simple tax alone puts the organization in opposition of its own membership, right? Like nobody wants, like it makes it puts the bad feelings on the player corp, not CCP for doing it or whatever. Which is kind of but I'm running low on time. So I guess I'm going to ask the most important question, which is cat ears, pro or con?
Absolutely. 100%.
Excellent.
100% cat ears. Listen, I've said this before and I will say this again. The idea that me as a capsuleer, I am immortal. I'm an immortal Empyrean. I am rich beyond the dreams of avarice. The amount of ISK that I own could fund all of the empires for years. Why can't I have fucking cat ears?
It's true.
Why can't I have a pink skin on my ship?
Well,
Why can't
now.
I put my Alliance logo somewhere? I mean, come on. I can buy anything. I can buy a freighter full of slaves or exotic dancers male if I want them. Why can't I have cat ears? It makes no sense. The whole grimdark nonsense in this game, come on. You know, and frankly, if you really don't like it that much, then when you add them to the game, or you add those special types of skins that are funny and goofy looking or whatever, give everybody a toggle saying, I don't want to see what other players have on their ships. I don't want to see what other players have on their head. And there you go. You can get your grimdark aesthetic back. But come on, absolutely let people customize the game in ways that they want to make it fun for them. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Excellent. You've got 10 minutes.
I don't need 10 minutes. I want to keep talking. Ask me more questions. I don't need, listen.
All right. Well,
I am a fan. I mean, I could talk. So, you know, I'd rather just have a conversation and go around. If there folks in chat have questions, I'm happy to answer that kind of stuff.
We are going a little bit late, but we also started early. So I'm comfortable with letting this roll for at least a little bit longer.
I mean, at the end of the day, for me, you know, I hope you guys know who I am by now. If you don't, you can check my website, briskforcsm.win. You can read my CCP thing on the forums. You can come talk to me. I'm every night, Rampage Incorporated, except Wednesdays. And then the Meta Show is Saturdays on INN. I'm accessible everywhere. I'm on Reddit. I'm on the forums. I'm on 3,000 Discords. I answer every Eve mail that I get. And I'm happy to talk to anybody. So ask away. Whatever. What faction warfare would I choose? Kaldari Master Race, baby. Absolutely, 100%. I will be.
Oh, I'm sorry. The connection's breaking up, Brisc. I can't hear you. We're losing you, Brisc.
Sorry. No, seriously, I'd totally do that. So, Nick
asked,
what's my thoughts on removing attributes? 100% in favor of removing attributes. I've advocated for this for 4 years now. We brought it up on CSM 13. The attribute system is a throwback to old D&D nonsense. Memory, perception, willpower, all this stuff. Nobody knows what the hell it is. Honestly, the only thing I know is
different bloodlines had different skills to start with and everything, and you couldn't just remap attributes.
That hasn't been the case in a long time, although that's the reason why around 2006, when Brisc was born, everybody was an Achura and Caldari monk because we were closest to Jita and had the best skills to start out. But at the end of the day, it's a superfluous system. It hasn't worked in a while. Tear it out. Give everybody a base amount that they generate skill points on. Implants and boosters should increase the rate at which you gain skill points. That's what it should be.
How do you feel?
And just get it over with.
How do you feel about like overall the announcements, the story arcs, the focus on faction warfare, all that kind of stuff? Are you positive about it? And if so,
I'm happy
can you convince
about
your allies that they should be
so,
positive too?
Well, and we try to do this on the Meta Show, and I said for the folks that are out there saying there was no content, you weren't paying attention. There was plenty of content. Now, was there stuff that you may have specifically wanted? Maybe not, but I've always said, at least on the CSM, when I ask for something and they give it to me, I say thank you. The heraldry system, I have been asking for this for years. We're finally getting structure skins. We're finally getting alliance skins. And they even went above and beyond with the way that the ships can be customized and the way they're going to look based on stuff you do in the game. That's cool as shit. And I'm looking forward to that.
And we're not going to pay cash for it either.
And I don't have to, and that's the thing. I was thinking this was going to be like a standard kind of like monetization thing where they could make a ton of money off of us by selling skins and stuff, and they're giving it to us for free. So you know what? Hey, thank you. I'll take it. You know, and thank you for not being one of these guys, you know, one of the groups that's out there, you know, trying to nickel and dime all the time. Yes, they did increase the base price for subscriptions. They increased the amount of money that Plex costs, but still 500 Plex for a month of game time. There's ways to play the game where you don't have to put any money in at all. You can still be an Omega. And they're not charging us up for all of this new customization stuff. So that's good. On the faction warfare side, another thing, I've been begging them for years. It's faction warfare's turn. It's faction warfare and LowSec's turn. They deserve the dev attention. So I'm very, very pleased that they're finally getting what these guys have been waiting for. It's not been fair. They have not had anything happen of any significant substance in 10 years. They've had minor little things, but at the end of the day, They're finally getting what they deserve, and I'm very pleased about that. The skill queue stuff, again, because it includes the attribute stuff, I'm happy with that, but I'm also nervous about that. The UI changes, I'm nervous about. Those are types of the things that I'm looking forward to working with CCP on if I get reelected. But I thought FanFest announced tons of new stuff. They just did it in a way that completely turned everybody off, because they spent an hour and a half in the keynote talking about what they had done over the last 4 years instead of what was new coming. And I think everybody was looking for, at least the folks at home were looking for what was new that was coming, and they didn't get that.
Yeah.
What is my guy training right now? Brisc is training Capital Pulse Laser Specialization 5. He's got 8 more days until that's done.
Styler is apparently incredibly interested in me asking this question. So,
okay.
How does Brisc trim his beard so lovely?
My barber does it, because I don't trust myself to do this. I'm very bad at it. So when I get a haircut, I have the barber trim my beard. And I've been going to the same guy for 25 years now. Since 1995, Abel has been my barber at Puglisi Hair Shop in Washington, D.C. Go visit. 20th in Pennsylvania, 21st in Pennsylvania. They're great. Go visit.
All right. Well, I think that I'm going to wrap this up here. So I guess thank you all for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget before you leave to like and comment and subscribe if you haven't already. You know, throw any questions for Brisc in the comments below, or on his forums, or Discord, or go to the Meta Show, or go to Rampage, or just, you know, shout them out loud of your window, and I'm sure Brisc will.
I'll probably hear you.
Yeah, he'll react to it. So, but yeah, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. This has been a lot of fun. And on behalf of Brisc and myself, Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, thank you all for watching. And until next time, we'll see you in space.